Take two. This is Scott Holstad, poet, writer, author, with Ace, my youngest and last, I guess, child, feline child, who really is very photogenic, but apparently is a little shy today, even though he wants to plant himself on my chest as always. He's the smallest cat I've ever had, and even though he looks rather large, I think, in this video, he's actually only about 9 pounds at the most. I had many cats over the years that were between 16 and 20, so, and very, very hairy. So, Ace is now 11 years old, which is kind of freaky. Remember when we got him? This is my wife's child. You know, this is ours. They share a bond unlike any I've ever seen between two species. And even though I'm second fiddle, he still seems to tolerate me after 11 years. So I was going to do a end of year 2025 poetry reading, and still may try to do it, even though Ace is trying to intervene. And I didn't want to do the stuff I've been doing, which is I've been trying to do a little bit everything I've read from my new book, which I can't grab right now because of Ace. But Surviving Immortality Again, which came out in October, from Big Head Press, 132 pages, 90 poems, available at Amazon. And I've read stories, I've read from some of my old out-of-print poetry collections. I've read some haiku, some holiday stuff. Last time I tried to read some humorous poems to make up for a couple of dark readings I had. And that's kind of pretty diverse, and there's more stuff I could do, but I thought, you know, there's some poems that I remembered from a time long ago when I really started writing in seriousness, around 1990, 91. I was doing a lot of stuff that was more political at the time, social justice, cultural, well, they're one of these, cultural criticism, and there were a number of reasons for that. I'd always been an activist. I had always, hope the camera can take this on the go. Can't really test it while I'm doing it. But for those of you not old enough or not around back in the late 80s, and particularly 1990, 91, 92, you would probably have no reason to know this, but most people have heard of or remember the first Desert War, Desert Storm War, with Bush 1 as president and Saddam Hussein in Kuwait. And as controversial as the second one was with his son, the first one seemed somewhat controversial at the time. Nothing like the second one would become, because the first one seemed to have some legitimacy amongst other world nations, and it seemed that there was an aggressor. Of course, there was always stuff behind the scenes that you know, our ambassador told them 2 months before they invaded Kuwait, said, yeah, go ahead, what the hell, so why not? So I was a little shocked when we came back out and done it hard. But all the lies and bullshit to get us into the second one, to try and make it legit to the UN and whatnot. Jesus. Anyway, that was big, and there were a lot of other cultural things going on too, but the thing that really hit me hard at the time was, after 7 years as an undergrad, partying a lot. Um, changing majors after 3 years, having to start over, getting sick and missing a semester, and just I finally got my big old bachelor's in English, and I was been fed a lot of BS. All I think college students are fed by the career labs, and yeah, they have a job to do, and they don't. I mean, they need to try and let the coming graduates, pending graduates, soon-to-be graduates, recent graduates, any graduates feel like they actually have a chance. And during a recession, and really ever since, the chances haven't been as great as they used to. And I bought into it, and I graduated from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville with my first degree. And but I wanted to get the hell out of there. I had been there for a long time, so I went to other cities and interviewed and looked at options, and that included Atlanta. Of course, everybody tries Atlanta, but also D.C. I interviewed with a Democratic senator, a Republican congressman, and let's see, what was the other one? Same day. And damn, I can't even remember. But their office was not where the other offices were, and it was funny, fun time. But I also went out to Phoenix and went to LA and other places just to look around. And I had different reasons for each. Some distant relatives or friends, or I decided to go to Phoenix. So I moved to Phoenix around the end of 1990, very beginning of 91. And I had done a lot of research. I've always been big into research. I think that's not really a surprise for most. And I had found that there were 44 companies, allegedly, that published in the Phoenix area, which at the time was the 6th biggest city in America. Last I heard, it was now 5th. I just know I was going to get a sweet job with a corner office, my own secretary, high double-digit, salary approaching 6 figures. I guess not double. I mean, delusional, just for someone with a bachelor's. I remember at the time reading an article in Forbes, I think, interviewing some top CEOs who were saying bachelor's is really not worth any more than a high school diploma was just 10 or 15 years ago. And that turned out to be the case. Long story short, I had a tough time in Phoenix. Tough time for a lot of reasons. It was a tough time. But there were some good things that came out of it, like learning how to work, learning a work ethic. I'd been kind of lazy in college, honestly. When I got out there, I had a place to stay for a little bit, and they had always had people come out and look for a job with them and get a job in like a week or so, and Yvonne, I was there. I was not prepared for the fact that everyone, let's see, 16 of the 44 companies that published and filed Chapter 11 when I got out there. All the rest were laying off staff. There was nothing. Not only in publishing, but in other fields where I had some experience or education or interest or whatnot. I couldn't get anything, and I actually got kicked out because they were sick of me living with them. And it's not like I was really trying to freeload. I was using my own savings, but staying there for a while. But living in your car in Phoenix in spring gets damn hot. It is not cool. But I ended up getting a job at a very large company for the state. It was my third attempt to get a job with this company, and it was, each position was lower down the rung. the first I applied for was in their legal department. I had several years' experience in the legal field, clerking, researching. They never called me in, I found out later, because they thought I was far too overqualified and I would never be interested in taking what shabby little job they had to offer. Ironically, several months later, I wound up at that same company. It was the largest insurance company in the state of Arizona, and its clientele were indigent, state-affiliated insurance, a lot of people. And I wound up in a job in document control as part of claims. And in fact, they fired the manager after a month and promoted me with no increase in pay or title or anything for $5.56 an hour, 1991, February, $5.56 an hour, 12 hours a day. Six days a week plus one Sunday, so roughly 28 days a month, 12 hours a day. It was the overtime that allowed me to actually barely survive. $5.56 an hour. I don't remember what minimum was then. That wouldn't have been much more than minimum at all. That was entry-level crap for people who didn't even have a degree. So it was just, and you know what though? They worked us like dogs. They worked us to the bone, and there was a lot of other stuff going on. I was also writing every day and night, and didn't sleep, and getting robbed and shot at. And, after a couple of years, I decided to go back to school and try and get another degree as a better student, more motivated student, much more motivated, and see if that wouldn't get me other opportunities. And that worked out perfectly, but I was very motivated. Anyway, at the time, people were really ticked off at Bush because he made two key mistakes that made him a one-term president. And he cried. They teased on SNL that he cried, "I don't want to be a one-term president." Well, he was. One, because he lied about not raising taxes. He made a pledge, no new taxes, won't raise taxes. He raised taxes, just like Reagan did, just like most everybody except the current conservatives who believe that money will appear out of thin air to pay for, national bills, infrastructure, federal salaries. And the other one was he wouldn't acknowledge there was a recession and people were hurting, and it seemed really grim at the time. Obviously, looking back on it now, that's almost quaint compared to some of the things we've seen since. But at the time, his continued, and I know the strategy, show, optimism and leadership and blah blah blah. But when you're just literally ignoring facts that are impacting most Americans in horrible ways. I wound up homeless twice because of that son of a bitch. I wound up working, like I told you, and others, because that lying hypocritical fucking son of a bitch. And between him and Pete Wilson, it switched me from young, lifelong Republican to a Democrat for the next decade, or thereabouts. I'm a member of neither party. I think they both sucked. But back then, I was doing a lot of engaged writing. I also had started my own little publishing company that published mostly poetry, focused on social and political issues on the left for the most part. And I had wanted this to be a shorter video, and of course, because I've been blabbing, it's not going to be again. Sorry. But I wanted to read, I thought, I've read all sorts of stuff this year. Of course, it's been political in the most insidious ways in the U.S. and around much of the world. It's been a tough year. I don't know that next year is going to be better. I certainly hope it will be for all of us, for me. But you can never tell. Things are very fluid and move quickly and a lot of craziness. But I had 5 poems published as Big Head Press Broadsides in the Big Head Press Broadside series. And they published no-name beginners to very, very famous activists. Antler, the perceived heir to Allen Ginsberg, whose first book on city lights called Factory was lauded as well, he's been poet laureate of Milwaukee for a long time, but there's a lot of different stuff. There were some women writing about women's reproductive rights, abortion. A lot of people writing about different things, and I just thought I would read my Big Head Press Broadside poems from 1990, 91, 92, thereabouts, because even though they are meant to reflect that time and that era, if you change a name here or there, it's amazing how far we have not fucking gone, in my opinion. Be interested how any of you who make it through this may feel after hearing these, because just in looking at them, and I think to myself, wow, still have quite a ways to go. Well, even more now compared to then, perhaps. I'm just going to read them, I think, in alphabetical order, not chronological order. It's not soda or cocoa. It's fizzy water. This first one, I'm going to take my shades off. I have every issue, but I don't think I'm going to try and put on my reading glasses. This first one is called Dead Horse Lake. Dreaming dreams of a dead horse lake, content in its complacency, of moldy mattresses, rusty razor blades, a certain sickness of the soul. When my lover wakes, she tells me of her dreams, flowers resplendent in their blooming delicacy. I have nightmares. A dead horse lake, society on the edge, murders and guns, of being chased by the dark man, big brother in a land of apathetic entities. And oh, my friend, reality is often little more than a mere reflecting visions made of ice and steel, cold, permanent, and carefully contrived. This next one appeared in a commercial magazine that was largely African American, named AIM, which was an acronym. This appeared on a pretty cool issue that had David Duke. If you don't know him, he ran for president back then, and he had been a grand wizard of the KKK, so they had a big X through him, and they had Jesse Jackson and others. And they had this poem of mine, and yes, I know that I'm technically not black, but I didn't misrepresent myself. He didn't have to be published just because it was most of the audience, was irrelevant. I've been published in all sorts of tons of things. If I can't relate, I usually know people who can. Endless cry of the dead and dying. I see tomorrow's world, a Hiroshima of the mind. And apathetic people crave endless, violent entertainment, and bloody politicians mindlessly abuse the barren soil of crippled constituents, where the drug of choice is escapism of any sort, and broken bodies line the streets. I see tomorrow's world bearing down hard today. This third poem of 5 is simply titled Here. Anyway, I saw it coming from the rooftops, man. They said the second coming was heading our way under the fitting guise of a North Carolina senator. A struggle and a dream, white against black. Tomorrow's rule today, force-fed to us in a tobacco-colored spoon, keep us entertained, content, oppressed. We prayed, friend, and they brought it down. Oh, to be able to look into the future. Brilliantly titled NRA-funded art. This appeared in a literary journal I never really thought would be open to something like this, but no, credit them. NRA-funded art. As a response to some things that happened over a weekend long ago, and nothing has changed. Feeling the fear, hysteria in mass murder town, 4-block radius, 6 gunned down, point blank, 83-year-old woman running, begging, don't shoot. Convenience clerk, Colt cocked, shot through eye, nothing taken. Who says it's pointless? Jumped out killer on lamb, killing for art's sake. This is my art, judge me now. I think the judging has been going on for quite a while. It's my personal feeling. This last one's a little different. It's a little more personal. It's titled Queen. Her broken body is beautiful. She hides her pain well. Her thick black hair halos her head. Tanned brown breasts bent out at an angle. Valley between straining outward, tired face and bearded soul. She shakes when she lights up. I want to hold her to me, take away her pain, fear, make her believe someone gives a shit. I want to stroke the nape of her soft, downy neck, cover her eyes with my hands, feel her cheeks quiver beneath. I want to know her, but like one wounded, she won't let them close. She's afraid to live life. At times she feels a feeling similar to one she had as a child, but when it appears, she pushes the plunger and it disappears. These were meant to sort of reflect perhaps a potential perception or take or observation on 2025 and what may or may not be in store in 2026. Written in 1990, published in 90, 91, 92. I think a lot of that conceptually really is still relevant today, sadly. What do you guys think? Anyone? Leave a message. I'd like to know. I'd like to know if you think things are better or worse. You don't have to get specific. But, would love a like, comments, subscribe. That's cool. I'm trying to get back into doing more frequent readings, but I got calls this morning for doctor's appointments. They want me to come in tomorrow. I've been to a doctor at a hospital every freaking day for the past week and a half, and before that I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. And one day I'll be able to resume normalcy, maybe. But I wanted to sort of make an observation. I try to not go too hard into, not because I'm afraid of offending or pissing people off or getting disappeared. Any of that could happen anytime anyway. But there are a lot of people. I did a lot of writing and talking in the previous decade, a lot, 10, 15 years ago. And other people have picked up the gauntlet, and I still do writing and talking, but I like to keep my videos more on just poems and stories that are different. This video has again gone on far too long. I'm very sorry. In the middle of equipment changes and feel very up in the air. Things are chaotic. Want to move, don't want to move, not sure where to move, want to move bad. I hope everybody has had a good holiday season this month. It's been a tough month for me, but it's almost New Year's Eve tomorrow, and almost 2026. A lot of people are hoping that will be good. I hope that will be good, but every year this decade has gotten worse for me by far, and I see no reason why that won't continue for me. Awesome. Feel free to share this video. I get a lot more views from shares on other platforms than I do on YT. I guess I don't do the right algorithm stuff and other stuff, and well, this isn't really my job, so I don't really feel like it. It's just something I like to do for the heck of it. Those of you looking at football games and other sporting events over the next few days, enjoy. Those of you doing other things, just trying to have a good time and stay safe. There's a lot of crazy shit going on. It's a crazy world. I'm living in a Kafka tale, or would that be Burroughs? Doesn't matter. As any of you have watched my videos know, I have a terrible time ending these videos, but the only way I succeed is just in freaking ending them. So, thanks to any of you who have watched. Please, again, like, comment, subscribe, share. Appreciate it. And I've told you a million times in places where you can find me. Otherwise, it's not hard. There's a lot around. But I hope all of you have a good New Year's, and I look forward to engaging with some of you next year under perhaps other circumstances. Ciao.